In this video I'm going to show you how you can literally inherit yourself as Burgundy in the Burgundian inheritance that of course triggers when your ruler Charles de Bourgogne dies. And yes, it is as OP as it sounds, because that means that you can literally inherit all of your subjects, no matter how many there are, completely for free without even becoming a subject nation. And in the meantime, also becoming the HRE Emperor 100% guaranteed. I'm the student and I present the self-inheritance. But first things first, you can see this is the current stage of the game. As Burgundy, we are a kingdom in the meantime, as you can see, 1482. And yeah, don't ask me why I own these provinces. I have bigger plans for this game after that strategy. But anyways, basically I was using the Mamluk trick for the Suez Channel to gain 50,000 ducats, which I used to upgrade monuments, and I still have 20,000 ducats. If you want to know how that works, definitely check out my other video that I did about that strategy. But anyways, you can see that this is the current situation of Burgundy allied to Bohemia and the Palatinate for elector purposes. And I have basically half of France as my subjects, including also the personal unions that I start with, of course. So yeah, you can see, of course, Champagne and Orléans are also my vassals. I have quite some vassals. You can see I'm 1 over my relations limit, but I will inherit all of them in a second, and I'm going to show you how that works. The first thing is the setup that you need to do, and first of all you need to be able to abdicate your ruler, which you can see I'm already far over the moment that I could do that, which is of course that Charles has to rule for 20 years. So if he comes to the throne at 15, it would be when he's 35. And you need to have an heir that is 15 years old at least, and then you can abdicate and trigger the Burgundian inheritance whenever you want, basically, right? So you have 100% control over the moment when the inheritance happens. The other part of this setup is that you need to reduce Austria, or whatever the current emperor is, to the stage where you can actually full annex, or rather vassalize them, because you can see they have only 26% war score. Because if you vassalize the current emperor, you are going to trigger an imperial election, and you're going to notice that yeah, I'm being voted for already by 2 nations. I don't know why they haven't changed their vote yet. But also what is interesting is that once Austria is gone, the second votes are important. So you can see Cologne would vote for Tyrol after that. But for example, Trier would vote for me, and Ingolstadt would also vote for me. So I have basically enough votes secured that if I were to vassalize Austria right now, I would become the HRE Emperor, okay? Now, if you wonder how to get Austria that small so quickly, it's basically the same as you would do with Ming in the Emperor of China thing, that you can just declare one war against Austria and break all of their alliances. You can see, by the way, Hungary wouldn't join anymore. Break all of their alliances and then immediately declare on an HRE prince. And that will, of course, call Austria in as a co-belligerent nation, so you can immediately take 100% war score again. And that is what I did 2 times. First time I released Tyrol and gave those 2 provinces to Bohemia. And the second time I released Styria, as you can see, that now reduces Austria to 2 provinces. Okay, now of course I can, whenever I want, to declare war on the emperor, which, as I said, calls Austria in as a co-belligerated nation, so that I can vassalize them immediately. Now, before I do that, I of course need to abdicate, because I can't do that in war. And this is now the moment where it gets a little tricky in terms of the time that it takes, okay? Now, once you abdicate, you have basically the event for the Burgundian inheritance that is open for around 4 months. And what you need to do is you need to go for the war target. So in this case, I'm going to declare on Aachen and rush their force down as fast as possible, and then rush the 4 of Austria down, which is a level 1 4, shouldn't be too difficult, all within those 4 months. And then you can ask Aachen to give Austria as your subject, right? So, and all of that before you click the event, but you're going to see that in a second. One more important thing is that before you trigger the Burgundian inheritance, you need to be an elective monarchy. And that is because once you trigger the Burgundian inheritance, Marie of Burgundy will become your empress or your queen, which means that you aren't able to be voted for the HRE emperor because you have a woman as a ruler. So you need to switch Marie via the elective monarchy to a male king at that moment. So now that I've talked about it, let's do it. And I'm going to switch to an elective monarchy first for only 50 government reform progress. There we go. Now I'm going to abdicate my ruler, which is the King Charles. So once I let 1 day tick over after I abdicated him, there we go. First of all, election of a new ruler. So, of course, I want to hold this event for now. If I now let 1 day tick, then the Burgundian inheritance is going to trigger. Okay, so let me just demonstrate that. There we go. You can see Marie de Bourgogne is on the throne right now, and the Burgundian succession crisis triggered. Now, as I said, I can't be voted to become the emperor right now, which means that I have to get a male ruler right now. So let's just pick this guy, which is surprisingly strong stat ruler. So there we go. And now you can see I'm being voted for again. Yeah, you can see it doesn't really matter that Austria is above Palatinate over here. They will vote for me after that. And same should also go for some other nations. So I think I can get the vote from Ingolstadt by just allying them. So I'm just going to do that real quick. And yeah, now I think you can see I'm the second one over there. So I will be voted from Palatinate and Ingolstadt, which will be enough because I have way more prestige than Bayreuth, for example. So yeah, you can see this is easily possible. But now, of course, I need to become the HRE emperor. And that is why, as I said, I am going to declare war on Aachen, and I'm not going to call in Bohemia because they might desire the Austrian lands. So I'm just going to go like this and declare the war. You can see Aachen didn't maintain their force, so I can just rush it down real quick. There we go, and that's already 23% war score, so I think it would already be enough. Let me just see how much war score that is to vassalize them. 27%. So yeah, I'd rather not go any risk and also siege down the Regensburg 4 on the way, and then after that the 4 of Austria, and then it should be doable. We haven't even passed 1 month yet. That's Wienerwald bombed up, and now let me just slow down because the time is going to run out in a second. So yeah, just going to need to rush that down real quick. And that's a 76% war score, and they are in low, so probably Regensburg wouldn't even be necessary. But whatever, I can now piece them out, of course, in the entire peace deal, because Austria won't do it themselves, as you can see. But if I do it on the entire peace deal, I can now make Austria my vassal. And now you can see, as I said, Palatinate is voting for me after Austria, Ingolstadt is voting for me after Austria, and Bohemia should technically vote for me the entire time. So yeah, whatever, I will become the HRE Emperor. And there we go, a new Emperor is crowned. Joseph I of Burgundy. Now it gets interesting because obviously I triggered this event before I became emperor, and therefore there is still the option of choosing the emperor to become my personal union with, right? And the way that the Burgundian inheritance works is that if you choose any of those, so your strongest ally, France, or the emperor, that you actually inherit not only the Low Countries nations that are your subjects, right? Which you would do if you stay independent, then you get the privilege and so on, then you can inherit your PUs, right? But only your PUs. If you let yourself to become a personal union of any other nation, then you also, on top of the inheritance of your personal unions, inherit every single vassal with the capital. Very important, with the capital in the French region. So, for example, Toulouse has also one province over here in the Iberia region. I will, of course, inherit that as well because their capital is in the France region. And not only that, you also inherit every single subject in the HRE. So, for example, Austria, that I just vassalized, that will never be loyal, right? Normally, I will inherit them. You can see that inherits Austria. And for example, if you had a personal union on Bohemia or something, right? They are inside the empire. You would inherit them with this strategy as well. And of course, on top of that, you could also feed your French vassals into Italy, into Spain, whatever. You would inherit every single bit of that land for free with full cores. And now comes the part why I wanted to become emperor, because if I choose the emperor over here, you can see that it already says we will fall under a personal union with Burgundy. Okay, we are Burgundy, so we will literally inherit ourselves and therefore inherit all of these nations without any downside whatsoever of becoming a subject nation. So let me just click this event real quick. The Habsburgs, yeah, quote unquote Habsburg, Prince will do nicely for us because we will inherit ourselves. So there we go. Inherit all of our subjects. And now you can already see that Burgundy looks way, way smoother right now with the borders all over France and the Low Countries and the HRE. Of course, we are the HRE Emperor, so we can now also join the HRE whenever we want, gain a huge amount of imperial authority. Let me just demonstrate that real quick. 80 imperial authority, which means that I could already pass the first reform. And now comes the best part. I can literally choose what to do with myself. I can make concessions to France. I can integrate myself into the empire, or I can keep the union with myself, which might lead to a war with France, which, by the way, I just beat, you can see, a few years ago. So that will be the perfect moment to reset our truce with them. And yeah, you can also see I have 100,000 troops right now with a force limit of 70,000 troops and a max manpower from 80,000 troops without even full stating all of that land that I just inherited. By the way, as I said, just like that, I also made Austria not existing and inheriting their provinces as full cores, which I think is funny in its own, because now I can, of course, theoretically even release them and reconquer some of their cores, but whatever, it just doesn't matter. I've got that land and I'll keep it. After full stating everything, you can see that I have literally 0% autonomy in all of these provinces. Also in provinces of the Low Countries, this one hasn't updated yet. You can see 0% autonomy in all of these juicy provinces. And that is, of course, a huge advantage also to staying independent, because then you would have to grant the Great Privilege, which caps your autonomy in the Low Countries for 50%. And you can already see that my force limit dramatically increased as well. And I can also do a few missions right now of integrating the lowlands, which I would do if I had the Diplo points cap. But anyways, also integrate Nevers now, as well as later, of course, claims on Savoy and so on. So let me tell you, this situation looks really, really powerful. Of course, we are also the #1 great power in the world. Ah yes, and with the death of Duke of Burgundy, apparently the Emperor Joseph of Burgundy just inherited Burgundy. I decided to keep our union with Burgundy, which in itself sounds pretty ridiculous still, but whatever. That means that I can secure the succession, which apparently gives me modifiers that I really don't need. But I can also join the HRE as the HRE Emperor, which gives me power projection that I also don't need, as well as more claims that I also don't need. But anyways, now at this moment I can of course expand further into the HRE to become Lotharingia if I want. And I can of course also complete this, as you can see, HRE mission path where I get 25 Imperial Authority, so pretty nice. But let's just wait if France actually dares to attack me. They are still in a war of independence for Naples, so I doubt it. But anyways, let's just see what happens. Okay, they actually declared a war on me with the restoration of union as casus belli, French Burgundian unification war. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to work. Of course, Castile is not on their side in this war. So I don't think that this will work. You can see I have all of my armies already set up right next to them. So yeah, this is it. This is the strategy of inheriting yourself as Burgundy. That leaves me with a nation that is without any competition. You can see #1 great power, only one valid rival. That is only because I'm so close to the Ottomans. And also an HRE Emperor that has infinite manpower, as you can see, 100,000 maximum right now, can already pass the first reform if I were at peace, have insane amounts of money, which is mostly because of the Mamluk strategy. Again, watch the video if you haven't. And I think this is enough for this week. Hope you enjoyed this strategy, and if you do it yourself, be fast, because the event times out after 4 months. That is the only thing that is a little tricky, that you have to win the war to vassalize the emperor within those 4 months. But after that, you can see it's just smooth sailing forever. Let me know in the comments what you think about this strategy, and we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.